Good evening. I'm Nisa Petrilli.
I'm Jay Kaplan.
I'm Steve Ferguson.
And I'm Sean Roman.
And this is the On the Sports Lines NHL-NBA Playoff Special. Of April, two things are certain. The tax season is about over, and the second season is about to start for the NHL and the NBA. Tonight, we'll break down the opening round matchups for the Rangers and Islanders, then take a look at the playoff matchups in the NBA, including the Nets versus the Hawks. All that, plus a look at the four top candidates for NBA MVP. As always, we want to hear from you, so email us at fanspeak@onthesportslines.com, send your tweets to @onthesportslines, and your posts to facebook.com/onthesportslines. We just may read them on the show.
And Sean knows we now do.
The President's Trophy winning New York Rangers have secured home ice throughout the playoffs. They start their march back to the Stanley Cup Finals with a rematch against the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're going to break this series down lightning round style. One analyst, one question, one answer. Sean, coming off the injury, what are you looking for from Henrik Lundqvist?
How handsome he is.
That goes without saying.
I am looking for the model of consistency that he's been. And I expect that because Lundqvist has always been known for being more of a positional goalie rather than a wild man like a Jonathan Quick. The one drawback I think we have of Lundqvist is he doesn't have the natural rhythm of the season. And the other drawback of Henrik Lundqvist is expect a guy, a sharpshooter like Sidney Crosby, to test him up high. You know why? What do they do in boxing?
Yeah.
If you have a weakness, if you have a bloody eye like right up here, they go for that weakness. And that's where Lundqvist's damage was. He had a blood vessel in his neck. So he's going to be naturally ginger when he sees a puck coming up high. I think that's where they're going to test him. And the Rangers, the great benefit this series is they are so deep on their goalie position that he doesn't have to be as dominant and take the whole load on his shoulders as he's done in the past. Cam Talbot has been absolutely incredible.
Fantastic.
I mean, look for him to want to go somewhere else and be the official starter for the majority of NHL season. And even if by some reason, should two goalies go down, they also have a wonderful third string. So the Rangers are just stacked at goalie, and I'm looking for Lundqvist to be stable as he's always been in these playoff games, but he doesn't have the fear that he has to carry the burden all himself.
Good point. Well, Steve, tell me which Rick Nash is going to show up, the MVP of 2015 or the LVP of 2014?
Well, Nisa, I'm hoping it's the MVP of this season and not the one we saw last year.
One would hope.
Because last year in the postseason, he was terrible.
Yep,
and he missed many open shots, many opportunities. This year he had a great year, 42 goals, 69 assists. Played his behind off. He was outstanding. And I think if you're a great athlete, you don't want to be humiliated 2 times in a row. I do expect him to play well. And, of course, his other teammates like Martin St. Louis and the others will have to step up also. But I am expecting him to be really good this year.
As are we all.
Yes.
Yep. Well, Jay, tell me, how did the Blue Shirts go about shutting down the Penguins' Sidney Crosby?
Well, due to injuries, the players around him who were expected to provide some offensive punch, Sid the Kid did not have the same type of year he did last year when the Pens were among the Cup favorites. But he's still the engine that drives this team, third in the NHL in points with 84, 28 goals, 56 assists, led the league with 1.09 points per game. Now, he struggled in the playoffs against the Rangers last year. As you guys remember, this is a rematch from last year where the Rangers came from 3-1 down to knock out the Penguins.
Right.
Yes.
Now, he had 1 goal, 2 assists in the series, and nothing over those last 3 games, all Ranger wins. He did say that he was hiding a wrist injury. He's healthy this time around. Now, here's the thing. The Rangers are going to stop him this way. Alain Vigneault has enough confidence in all of his centers. So on any given shift, you could see Derek Stepan, Kevin Hayes, Derek Brassard, or even Dominic Moore assigned, or their lines assigned to Crosby. On the blue line, I'm guessing the Blue Shirts' #1 defense pair of Captain Ryan McDonough and his partner Dan Girardi. These guys have become one of the best shutdown pairs in the NHL. Will likely be on the ice most of the time against Crosby and his line. But, Mark Stahl and Dan Boyle could be #1 anywhere else in the NHL. And if Kevin Kline is healthy to pair him alongside Keith Yandel, the Rangers are well-stocked both forwards and the back line to shut down Sidney Crosby in this series.
Do you think the Penguins were the least team that the Rangers wanted to see in that 8th spot, or do you think there's a good draw for them?
It's on paper, it's a good draw for them, but emotionally, it's a rematch.
Yeah.
And trust me, Crosby, Ovechkin, Fleury, those guys have not forgotten what happened last year. They want their due.
They want revenge.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yep.
Very true. Well, a 4-3-3 record down the stretch cost the Islanders home ice advantage, and thus they'll start the first round of their final Long Island-based Stanley Cup playoffs on the road against the Washington Capitals. We're going to break this series down lightning round style as well. One analyst, one question, one answer. Sean, can Yaroslav Halak carry the Islanders the way Lundqvist has carried the Rangers?
I have absolutely no idea.
It's a legitimate.
It's
legitimate.
That's a good way to respond.
I have no idea because the Islanders were just an extraordinary surprise through the first half of the season. And the
Yes.
funny thing about a hockey season for parents out there like Nisa, it goes the length of a school year, the entire school year. I mean, it lasts forever. So the Rangers caught the momentum late, but the Halak looked like, oh yeah, I'd love to have this guy in the playoff run. But then the way they ended the season with the run you just spoke about and like blooper reel goals against Ottawa and that debacle they had in not getting the 4 spot in their last game makes me think, man, maybe that he's really going to come up short come playoff time. But then in their first game against Washington, in Washington, stops 23 shots, only gives up 1 goal, looks ready to go, is operating on a clean slate. So I think especially since the Islanders are playing with a lot of emotion, the Nassau Memorial Coliseum is absolutely going to be rocking. That old building, it may be their last game unless Brooklyn decides to share the team. There's going to be something transcendent about this particular series, and my optimistic guess that he's going to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
And I want to see Rangers Islanders in that second round.
I think we all do.
I think everybody wants that.
Of course, the whole city does. Steve, John Tavares will be under the microscope. What are you looking for from him?
Well, I'm hoping since this guy was drafted #1 back in 2009 that we see the best of what John Tavares can do. As long as the Islanders don't rely on him to be the guy to do everything for them, they'll be fine. They do have Leddy and they have Okaposo. These guys are really good scorers. And Tavares, as long as he plays within their system, I think he'll do a great job for them.
Yeah, I mean,
How's he going to match up with the Ovechkin issue, you think? Who's going to emerge as the star of this series?
Well, Ovechkin is, from what I've understood of him in this series, he's never really had a great playoff series.
He hasn't.
And that's one of the
and
reasons.
Tavares can really jump on that,
I
and
think
he could be.
Tavares could be the guy who jumps on him should they play them in the
He's
next
going to be
round.
the guy who shines in this city.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the pressure's going to be on him because he's the man out on Long Island, just like Ovechkin is the man for the Caps, like Crosby is the man for the Penguins. It'll be interesting to see, how he handles that with the experience of last year's playoffs behind him. The leap from year 1 to year 2 in terms of playoff experience, what that will mean in his performance.
Well, speaking of Ovechkin, Jay, tell me, how will the Isles defend the NHL's top goal scorer, Capitals Ovechkin?
I'm honestly, I'm not sure you can stop a guy who lit the lamp in NHL leading 53 times, including 3 this season against the Islanders. Ovechkin led the NHL in goals created, power play goals, shots on goal, and goals per game. Almost half of his goals were on the power play. Now, Islanders GM...
But not last night.
Not last night,
last
no.
night.
Stopped him twice. That was a big deal.
That's
Ovechkin
right.
was trying.
Yep. Islanders GM Garth Snow brought in free agent Blue Liners Johnny Boychuk and Nick Leddy to bolster the defense, and these guys are going to earn their paycheck in this series, trying to keep Ovechkin away from Halak. As you said, Halak only saw 24 shots last night. The thing that concerns me is Travis Hamonic's status for the series is potentially up in the air. He was limping in the locker room prior to Game 1, did not play in the 4-1 victory. If they don't have him at his best, could be impact if the series goes long. Now, as we said, Ovechkin was stymied in Game 1. He had 8 shots on goal, all of which were turned aside by Halak and the Islanders' defense. But I get the feeling if this guy keeps getting 8 shots a game, the odds are going to slightly turn into his favor. The Islanders were 23rd in the NHL in goals against and 26th in penalty killing. Not good when you're going against a guy who, as I said, tops in the NHL in power play goals. Now, and Halak was also below average in an interesting stat they used to measure certain 5-on-5 situations called adjusted save percentage.
Sounds boring.
It does. Only a stat head like me can appreciate it. Now, as we said, the Islanders did not give Ovechkin anything easy in Game 1. They did a pretty good job of keeping him out of his preferred scoring areas on the ice. As we said, only 2 power plays, and the Islanders shut both of them down. They kept odd man rushes to a minimum, and even when the Caps had chances to make things happen off the forecheck and when cycling the puck in their offensive zone, the Islanders didn't allow that to become anything in the neighborhood of quality scoring chances. If they can keep that up, play the game at their pace, they have a chance to make Ovechkin a little less of a factor, and that may be just enough to steal the series.
Interesting.
Well, we're going to switch gears. You guys ready to talk a little NBA?
Always.
Okay. Well, they had to win their final game and then sit around to see if the Pacers would lose theirs, which they did. The tiebreakers went their way, so there will be postseason basketball at Barclays, as the 8th-seeded Nets will be taking on the top-seeded Atlanta Hawks. Sean, start us off. Which net is going to have the spotlight on them in this series?
You know, I think it's Joe Johnson.
Yep.
And he's been with the Nets the last couple of years. He wasn't part of that big trade with the Celtics. So he's a dynamic player, great presence, emotional leader at this point. And the thing that I said about the Nets when they made their move last year is they were able to give the Heat their best competition in the East. And Joe Johnson's going to be able to bring that tenacity and mindset to a team where psychologically you're not facing LeBron James.
Right.
Amazingly, you got in the playoffs with Indiana losing and then winning.
Absolutely.
The Atlanta Hawks just seem more beatable on paper and psychological than
If a 60-win team can seem beatable on paper.
Exactly.
It does. So I think with that type of mindset, the internal fortitude that Johnson has showed over the last number of years is going to carry over into the series. And given what I saw when crunch time hits, if the ball just bounced the other way, they could have beat the Heat last year. I see that this year. I see them playing a good, tough 5-6 game series where they're not getting blown out.
Could be.
Could be.
The Nets are riding a 13-6 streak heading into the playoffs. The Hawks have not been mediocre down the stretch, but that's more because Budenholzer has been taking a page out of Pop's book like he's been doing all year and resting his top guys towards the end of the season.
Exactly.
That's true. Well, Steve, Joe is going to need plenty of help. So tell me, who's the X factor for the Nets in the series?
Well, for me, it's got to be Jarrett Jack. And first of all, this guy should be starting at point guard.
Did I not say that back in February?
Yes, you did. Darren Williams, his game is definitely not suited for the way they play now. There's too much one-on-one, too much of him ball handling. And the only thing that he really does well is the pick and pop or pick and roll with Brook Lopez. Jarrett Jack, on the other hand, will pass the ball first. He looks for the open shooters. He's a very good clutch performer. And he has to play good defense against Jeff Teague, who is a blur running down the court. And he is a very tough guy to cover. And I think Jarrett Jack, if Lionel Hollins is smart, he'll start him and have Darren Williams come off the bench as he did in the middle of the season.
Be interesting to see.
It will. Well, Jay, the Hawks are truly a team, but if there's one player that the Nets must stop, who is it?
Well, Steve kind of alluded to it. The guy they got to stop, in my estimation, everybody's going to say, ooh, Kyle Korver. Nah, I'm sorry. The guy you got to stop is Jeff Teague. You know, the Atlanta Hawks are a team very much in the San Antonio mold. I mean, we actually referred to them back in February as San Antonio East. And Teague has got to be the guy. He's the engine. 16.7 assists a game, ran the Hawks offense with efficiency, top 10 in the NBA in both assists and assist percentage, excellent at setting his teammates up. This is the guy who sets Paul Millsap up at the elbow for pick and rolls, feeds entry passes into the post to Al Horford, drives and kicks out to Korver, who gets wide open looks at corner 3. Teague's the only starter who's capable of creating for himself off the bounce. So he basically, like Steve Nash used to back in the day, he's got the ball on a string in every possession. The Hawks don't run a lot of half-court sets. They have a few basic alignments to start things off, then they read and react off of that, with Teague orchestrating a high ball movement, passing, screening offense that was number 3 in the NBA in effective field goal percentage, number 2 in three-point percentage. largely due, of course, to Corver.
Yep.
Now, the Nets ranked 24th in the NBA in defense in general, and considering not who he used to was, Deron Williams will probably have the primary defensive assignment. I think the
exactly.
Nets are going to have a very tough time containing Teague. The key will be pressuring him into making bad decisions with the ball, especially in late game situations. If they can do that, plus a whole lot of other things go perfectly, then they'll have a chance, albeit a small one in my opinion, of pulling the upset. I don't agree with you, Sean. I don't think they will.
So do all
I
you
don't
guys
think
think
so
it's going to be
either.
4 or 5 games? I think it could go 5, 6. What do you guys
Bare
say?
minimum. I mean, I think the
Maybe.
Nets should pull off at least one win,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I don't see
5
them
games,
taking.
that's a
I'm
consensus.
thinking
Maybe
5
if Brook
games.
Lopez has a great series, maybe
Maybe.
they get
It would
maybe
be
they
it
get
would be a
6
miracle
games.
to pull that upset, but you know,
Yep.
stranger things
Things
have
have
happened.
happened.
They have.
We
Yep.
shall see. That's why they play the games.
Exactly.
That's
Not
right.
on paper, but on the floor.
Exactly. Well, now that all of the first round playoff series in both conferences are locked in, we're going to take a look at 3 that bear watching. Steve, start us off. Which series will you be keeping an eye on?
Well, I'll be looking at the Los Angeles Clippers San Antonio Spurs series. This to me is a case of the wannabe champions versus the champions. You've got the Clippers, very talented team, and they have a great guard in Chris Paul. You look at the Spurs, of course, they have Tony Parker, and
Yep.
he is par excellence at the guard position. To me, the key is whether DeAndre Jordan, who was Defensive Player of the Year, if he can have the impact to at least limit what Tim Duncan does in some of the other Spurs.
Yeah.
Because to me, if the Clippers don't play defense, they're done very quickly in this
Yeah.
series.
Steve,
Well-
have they peaked at the right time, San Antonio, with that winning streak they went on? They just seem to come
Yeah,
alive.
they have a way of sometimes when you least expect them to, they pull everything together, and then playoff time, they are a killer team to stop.
The tough part for them was losing in their final game, which dropped them from the 2 seed
Yeah,
all the
to the
way down to
6,
the 6. So
which
they
is
went into
amazing.
that last game with home court pretty much throughout
Right.
the playoffs, unless they wound up playing the Warriors, to now having to go on the road in every series.
Yeah.
And you guys know the only 6 seed to ever win an NBA title, right?
No, I don't. I'm gonna let you say it.
Houston Rockets.
Rockets.
The Olajuwon era.
Yes, I remember that all too well.
So they have a tough road to hoe, but you can't
That
count
would have been
out the team
94, 95.
around
That's
that
right,
area.
and they beat the Knicks.
And
And the Pacers.
And the Pacers.
Yes,
Well, there you go.
That's right.
I am actually going to be looking at what I think is probably the sexiest series out west in terms of big names and draws. It's not that, it's the Warriors versus the Pelicans, which is not the 1-8 matchup I predicted in February. I was hoping that Russell Westbrook would manage to get
Yes,
the Thunder
you
in
were.
and have a
You really
Steph
were.
Curry, Russell Westbrook matchup.
Yes, you were.
But the Pelicans nosed them out on tiebreakers. Both teams did win their finales. And they'll get to take on a Warriors team that was 67-15, best record in the NBA. But this one's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Golden State. Now, how does the team with the NBA's best offense and best defense handle being the team with the target on their backs? Steph Curry's gone from being just the NBA's best shooter to being one of the best players in the NBA. Almost 24 points, almost 8 assists, 2 steals a game. His all-around play has him in the MVP conversation. Can he lead this team to the finals? How will a rookie head coach like Steve Kerr handle the pressure of not only his first playoffs behind the bench, but the pressure of doing it as a #1 seed and a lot of people's prohibitive pick to win it all? Flip side, you look at the New Orleans Pelicans. Anthony Davis has risen leaps and bounds in this, his 3rd season. Pelicans rode his MVP caliber season, 24 points, 10 boards, almost 3 blocks, led the NBA in player efficiency rating all the way to that 45-37 record and the 8th seed. Can he take the next step to elite level by having a huge postseason and possibly being the latest 8th seed to knock off a 1? Now, it just makes this series very interesting to watch. And I'll tell you this much, guys. If it's 2-2 heading into Game 5, it could get really
I agree with
interesting.
you.
Jay, to put
yeah.
you on the spot.
As you wow, you don't do that too often,
As
do
he
you?
usually does, by the way.
ultimately, will
Yeah.
Golden State be taking a championship golden shower?
I honestly, damn, Sean, really?
Wow, wow.
Wow. Sean Roman, tip your way to try the veal. He's here all night.
Absolutely.
To answer your question legitimately, I do see them making the finals. They just have too much depth.
Yeah.
so, Sean, which series are you looking at?
I am looking at Cleveland against Celtics.
Yeah,
Yep.
someone's got to talk about that.
Yeah, someone does.
And LeBron James has been an absolute staple
Yep.
of NBA
Yes.
championship finals consistently.
Yes.
Has been in what, 5 in a row now?
Yep.
Something
Yeah,
like that?
5 in a row.
Won 2, lost 3, lost the last one he was with Cleveland after playing there for 6 or 7 seasons. Finally got there, then went off to get his championships. But unlike a Michael Jordan when he got to the championships, LeBron is beatable in these playoff series and the finals. So that gives some of the teams playing them some level of hope. And I think what the Celtics have to do is they have to channel the team we were speaking about earlier, the Knicks of the early 90s, and just concentrate on hard physical defense. Against LeBron, Love, and Irving. And that pretty much is their only chance, is to hope, keep the score down, keep it physical, hope a fight breaks out and people get suspended and take advantage of that.
I tell you, though.
I think that's their most legitimate
It is
shot.
because Cleveland finally has the starting five that they want.
Yes, they do.
With Mozgov now joining them.
That's right.
And they're finally clicking down the stretch.
Yep.
They come in to the postseason, possibly in better position than the Hawks do as the one seed.
You have a good
They
point there.
are the betting favorites right now,
Yes.
if that means
Yeah, they
anything
are.
to you, at 9-4. And after them comes Golden State, and way in the back is the Nets.
At least they made it into the tournament.
There you go.
It's gonna be an interesting 2 months.
That's how I judge success for a team, because when there are 30 teams in each professional sport, if you're competing like the Nets every year, you're doing something right.
There you go.
You are.
True. Well, unlike seasons past, there are 4 legitimate contenders for the 2014-2015 NBA MVP: LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Stephen Curry. Each of us will make the case for one of the 4. Jay, start us off and make the case for
Russell Westbrook.
Russell Westbrook.
I got to tell you, I've been talking about this guy pretty much since the All-Star game.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes,
has
you have.
anybody dominated the league since then? I mean, he dropped 41 points in 26 minutes in the NBA's annual midseason pickup game. Then after that, he went on a 10-game tear where he averaged a triple-double. I mean, that's Oscar Robertson type stuff.
Yep.
As you guys know, the Big O is the only guy who actually averaged a triple-double for a season.
That's
Now,
right.
Westbrook led the NBA at 28 points per game, yet still had the NBA's second highest assist percentage, a tenth of a point behind the league leader in Chris Paul. That's a stat that measures the percentage of teammates' assists that he set up. Now, second highest player efficiency rating behind Anthony Davis, top 4 in assists per game, top 4 in steals per game. He's only one of 4 players to average 27 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists in a season. The other 3, LeBron, Michael, and the Big O. And he's done it with Kevin Durant out since January.
That's right.
Mid-February. Serge Ibaka out since mid-March.
That's
and
right.
against defenses arrayed with one goal: stop him.
That's right.
Now, granted, he's the second scoring champ in the last 30 years not to make the playoffs, but because of everything he did, the Thunder came from lottery bound in January to being in the playoff hunt up until the last day of the season and only getting nosed out by tiebreakers. I'm sorry, if that's not worthy of the MVP trophy, I don't know what is.
Wow.
Steve?
Well, I'm looking at another guy who I think is the MVP, and it's Stephen Curry.
A lot of people's pick.
I mean, when your team is 67-15, that says it all right there. But he is probably the best pure shooter I've ever seen at guard.
Best
This
shooter
guy
in the NBA.
can shoot from everywhere on the court and makes most of his shots almost like most people do, hitting layups. And not only does he hit his shots, he also has become a really good passer.
Yeah.
He's gotten better defensively, but what he does offensively for a team is unbelievable. And you add that to Klay Thompson. The two of them are incredible offensive players. And to me, he's getting better and better. His father was a very good NBA player. He is a superior NBA player to his father.
Yep.
And that's saying a lot. Del Curry was a great player, but Stephon is tremendous.
Sean?
I'm looking at Mr. Harden.
Yes.
Because one of the criteria, of course, we all look at is how significant is that individual to their team. And could you just picture where the Rockets would be without Harden?
Out of the
Nowhere.
playoffs.
Nowhere.
And that happened when Dwight Howard went down after 40 games. And also, they lost Terrence Jane and Pat Beverly.
Yes.
What's amazing is that with all that defensive focus on Harden, he was still able to dominate offensively and be the ultimate exciting force that he's been. The most important statistic that I found vis-a-vis Curry is when Harden scores less than 15 points, which is not often.
No, not at all.
3 and 5 is the record of Houston. So you could see that difference. But when Curry scores less than 15 points for Golden State, they're still 8 and 1.
Wow.
Well, I don't have time, but LeBron James, everyone, come on. come on. And I'm a Heat fan, but still, I got to give it to LeBron. He elevated his team.
He's the reason they're in the playoffs,
Yeah,
and
he
he's
is.
the reason they're the 2 seed.
Definitely is.
Exactly.
I think they would have been able to beat the Nets.
Look at where they
were.
were last year. And also,
Yeah.
I'm a Heat fan. Look at where the Heat is this year. So
Enough said.
LeBron's the
That's
only
right.
difference there.
Yep.
Well, that
certainly
music
is.
means it's time for the 3-minute warning. Sean, lead us off.
Aaron Hernandez, who had a $40 million contract, is now convicted of first-degree murder.
Booyah.
Now, I have been following that case, mostly in the New York Times, and I get from it that Hernandez was with 2 people, Ernest Wallace and Carlos Ortiz, when Odin Lloyd was gunned down. But I still don't know the circumstances of what happened that night any better than I did before the verdict than after. There was actually no murder weapon found, a very speculative motive, and the 2 other defendants going on trial related to the same crime. I contrast this with Jameis Winston, who the NFL and public is by and large embracing. He's going to get that multi-million-dollar contract when, in my view, there was a stronger case and evidence against him for the second most heinous crime in American society. This was a case where the government had a witness to the event, and there was also the destroyed video evidence for one of his teammates.
Yep.
Now, my simple point is, whatever view you have, don't be a follower to people who just label others. If you think Hernandez did it or Jameis didn't, don't take my word for it. Don't even take a jury's word as gospel. Do your best to read up on the matter and have your own informed opinion.
Oh, Henry, what a big fool you are. Remember, just as the baseball season commenced, newsflash, Minnesota Twins pitcher Irvin Santana suspended for 80 games for taking a steroid called Stanozol. Imagine how ticked off the Twins were seeing this free agent as their number 2 starter for 4 years at $54 million with an option for a 5th year to boot. Never thought I'd hear a story like that again. Wait a minute. Are you serious? No way. Henry Mejia did the same thing. Where is your intelligence, character, or responsibility? Locked into that steroid you were clueless about, eh? Give me a break. Being injured is one thing, but being the biggest jerk on the planet is another. Enjoy your unpaid vacation. See you in July, you fool.
One of my favorite quotes is, of all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these, it might have been. To me, they perfectly sum up a life tragically cut short. A life like Lauryn Hill's. Lauryn was a Mount St. Joseph's basketball player who found out shortly after her 18th birthday that she had diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma, DIPG for short. Her condition was terminal. Doctors said she had maybe a year. She was stunned, but her first question wasn't about treatment, it was, will I still be able to play basketball? Turns out she would. The NCAA made an exception, allowing the Mounts game against Hiram College to be moved up to November 2nd so that Lauryn could play. And then the Mount moved the game from their 2,000-seat arena to Xavier University's 10,000-seat arena because so many people wanted to see her play that game. It sold out in less than 24 hours. Lauryn scored the first and last points of that game against Hiram, but her greatest legacy won't be the layup she had, but the more than $1.5 million she raised to fight DIPG. Lauryn Hill passed away on April 10th. She was 19 years old. That same arena where she played her first game held a memorial for her on April 13th. It sold out as well. There's another quote I now think of that sums up a life that inspires in the wake of the sadness it's caused by being tragically cut short. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and the manner in which you live. Stuart Scott was absolutely right. Lauryn Hill is proof.
Well, it's mid-April, and the Knicks are yet again in competition for the top lottery pick.
Yes.
They were solidly in last place by a whole game and about to clinch that #1 lottery spot. Then this week, they inexplicably won a game versus the Hawks, who have the best record in the East. This begs the question argued time and time again. This late in the season, is it better to tank to get the top draft pick or show some pride? To me, the answer varies by sport. In the NFL, you have 16 games. So if you were terrible for a while, show some pride over the final weeks and carry it over to the next season.
Agreed.
But in the NBA, with 82 games, if you're that bad, one win at the end of the season against a team that's resting its players isn't all that impressive or inspiring.
Nope.
In that instance, I say take the draft pick and hope your ownership doesn't screw it up.
This is the Knicks ownership we're talking about, right?
True.
That's what the Knicks should have done, but instead they opted to win and roll the dice on a much lower draft pick. But hey, the top 7 guys from Kentucky are eligible, so there's still a flicker of hope, right?
Yep.
Good pick.
For Jay Kaplan, Steve Ferguson, and Sean Roman, I'm Nisa Petrilli. Thanks for spending part of your evening with us. We'll see you on April 30th for the On the Sports Lines 2015 NFL
wow.
Draft Special.
That's right, guys.
Yeah.
Remember, if you want to see this show again or catch up on any of the ones you might have missed, check us out at youtube.com/onthesportslines and check out our blog at onthesportslines.blogspot.com. Good night, everyone.
Night,
Good night, everyone.